know that we'll be able to hear from you too, if you're in the audience. So we're looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're ready for prime time. Jen, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So I'm super excited for this episode of our audio chat here. Jen and I met each other at in a program that is actually very, very cool, and it enables, normal people like us to feel comfortable using LinkedIn, putting your voice out there, getting more centered in your thought leadership. I shared something yesterday. It's called DIY Influence. And Jen and I were part of the same cohort. So we're taking courageous steps together here to support each other in this journey. The idea of this conversation is to really amplify the messages that we are trying to put out there on simple posts. It sounds like it's easy sometimes to write something, click post and put it out there for people to react to it. But in the conversations I've been a part of, as I myself get acquainted, I noticed that there's a lot more that goes into it. There's a lot of thought, there's a lot of courage sometimes to even start on that journey. And there's always more to one post than what we get to read. And so I just figure these type of conversations can help us learn from each other as we take the stand, every once in a while to share what we would like the world to know about us. And Jen is a perfect example of how that journey is unfolding. So Jen, I'm super glad that you're here. Thank you for joining me in this adventure with this programming that I'm pressure testing at this moment called If My LinkedIn Post Could Talk.
Thank you so much for having me, Lindsay. And you can't see me, but there's a huge smile on my face because I know that this has been an idea of yours for a while. And I think it's so true that in the world of social media, we try to be as succinct as possible, but there's so much more behind what we're trying to say. So thank you for giving people this opportunity and having me today.
Yeah. Okay, so I already welcome Eileen, Tina, Lisa, Brent, and Liz, and I want to welcome Purva and Platine and my friend Paul, who's somebody I look up to, who is the master of audio chats on LinkedIn. If you haven't followed his work, please do yourself a favor. And then Andrew and Mirza, so excited that you're here with us. And as a round of housekeeping, if this is the first time you've been on an audio chat, it's very simple on your end. It's like if you're in a Zoom call with your cameras off, but you can still react with thumbs up and hearts, and you can clap if you find something super exciting. And if you raise your hand like you would do on a Zoom call, I have the capability on my end to allow you on the stage, and then you can join the conversation live and ask questions, provide your input, your point of view, and whatnot. So I encourage you to do that. Ideally, this becomes a place where we can talk to each other as opposed to just sitting there and listening. But we're going to get started, Jen. We have a structure. It's a little bit of a structured conversation with flexibility to move in any direction. But I do want to make sure that we dive deeper into your journey, primarily as a content creator, which will take us to understand better what you do and who you are and how you got to this point. So the first question that I always would like to kick off with is what I'm calling your ABCs of content creation, your personal, let's say, recipe, right? For coming out here on LinkedIn and writing your thoughts and putting them out there. So because it's an ABC, obviously, I have three categories. The first one is a thing that you often leave for the last minute when you are posting something online.
And so a thing that I often leave for the last minute is spontaneity. So I tend to, and there's certainly no science to it, but I tend to plan maybe one or two posts that I know for sure are going to happen. And then what is really last minute is the spontaneity. And I find that the spontaneous posts tend to do really well because I think they are off the cuff. and a little bit more authentic, perhaps, than what I pre-planned.
Then let's move to the next one. One best practice that you've learned so far.
So I think that actually dovetails really nicely with my A, which is that don't pre-plan too much. There's so much in your everyday that is relevant to people and that is appropriate for LinkedIn. And because it's happening in the now, there's an authenticity to it that something pre-planned sometimes doesn't have. So that is my best practice. Leave room, plan for spontaneity is my my best practice.
That sounds paradoxical, but I love it. Well, so for those days when you feel that you couldn't plan for spontaneity and you are a little bit uninspired, what's your C for creativity booster?
I think, like a lot of your guests, because I've been listening to this to just hear how they go, I think trying to turn my mind off thinking actually helps me be creative. So whether it's going for a walk and just looking at nature and being in nature, doing yoga, little ideas come to me then. And then I'm a big meditator, so I find that just these beautiful spurts of ideas come up during my meditation that I'll just sort of put on the side. But then once the meditation is done, I'll have a really great idea that comes from that. So again, paradoxically, the idea of turning your mind off often generates the best creativity.
That's great. I want to welcome Jennifer, and who I met in one of Paul's audio chats. I'm excited you're here. And I want to welcome Ratika, who is my friend. And actually, she recruited me and hired me into one of my roles that was an exciting role for me at Hanes Brand. So we remained friends, and I'm excited you're here. And there's my friend Christina, who is also new to audio chats and somebody that I really, really love. So Christina, thank you for being here. So for those of you who just joined, if you want to come on the stage, please raise your hand. I'll bring you on. So Jen, let's start diving deeper then from here, because the idea is that we take one of your posts that obviously is super relevant to you, to what you do, to your passions, and that we use it as a springboard to develop and elaborate on this conversation. And let me ask you a question. Did you, when you wrote the post that we are going to feature today, did you have anybody read it out loud back to you at all?
No, that was actually one of my very spontaneous posts. So not at all. It was not planned, and it was just what was on my mind at that moment.
Okay. So we're gonna do a little exercise. Since the whole premise of this call is if my LinkedIn post could talk, we need a voiceover, right? So I'll be the voiceover of your post. I'm gonna read it for us here to take it in if we haven't come across with it yet. And obviously it's not gonna sound like the voice in your head because it will come out with my accent. But I'm gonna read it the way I digested it, and then we'll take it off from there. So Jen's post was written about 3 weeks ago, and it says, patterns and dots. Career strategy is about recognizing patterns and connecting dots. Patterns. What do you love to do? What gives you energy? What drains you? What are you curious about? Dots. What are you good at that you love to do? Connect the dots and combine the patterns. So Jen is an executive coaching, personal branding, career strategy leader. And obviously this post is very, very core and central to everything that you are bringing to us into the world. So Jen, let's take a pause here. And as you digest your own post, I really would love to start asking you, what motivated you to communicate this out into the world using LinkedIn?
So it's interesting because what we often do when we think about career strategy is we think inside our heads, right? We spend a lot of time ruminating and deliberating. And this is a very visual way to think about where we want to go next. So what had happened with this post was I had just gotten off a coaching call with a client, and we did a bit of a deep dive into how she can identify some patterns in her life and connect dots around what it is she loves to do. So that was great. And, I gave her some tools, and then I looked up in my own home and I saw my bulletin board that has dots. I have an image on my wall with dots, and I have a rug that has polka dots. And then I had a mug that had a polka dot, and I had patterns on my blazer. And I realized that I'm surrounded by patterns and dots. And what you didn't read, obviously, is the image that went with the post, which is a selfie of me with all the patterns and dots around me. And I'm somebody who hates selfies, but there was something so spontaneous and authentic about that moment when I posted this and I was surrounded by patterns and dots and talking about the importance of patterns and dots in your life. That just made that LinkedIn post kind of work for me.
This is what's fascinating, and this is why I want to have these conversations, because who would have guessed, right? You went through that meaning making process to realize not only what you wanted to communicate, but assessing your ecosystem and make it all intrinsic to not only who you are and how you make sense of things, but how you operationalize that in the work that you do with others, and created such a powerful metaphor that I'm sure as somebody trying to connect the dots in their own career can use as well to facilitate their thought process into that.
I think that's a great observation. And it also made me realize that maybe in the tools that I create, I need to create more of those patterns and dots because they are so true to who I am, to what I wear, what I like, and to the work of career strategy.
What did you want to provoke when you finally said, this looks prime, I'm gonna hit post? What was the first thing in your mind that you wanted to provoke when people read it, or what kind of reactions were you expecting to receive, if any?
Well, I think that when people are on LinkedIn, they're thinking about their careers. Like, unlike if they're on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, they are really thinking about, okay, who I admire, who can I connect with, who might be able to help me figure out how I can work at this organization. So they're very much in that professional mindset. And I felt like this was a really nice way to catch them in the moment of when they are there working on advancing their careers, really to think about what it is that they want to do next.
So I'm going to play your post back to you, and I'm going to ask you the questions that you posted for us to understand your patterns and dots. So let's try that. What do you love to do, Jen?
I love to help people gain clarity about how they can live a life that's meaningful by designing a career that supports the life they want at that time in their lives. Mm-hmm. Because what we wanted when we're 20 is not the same as what we wanted when we're 30 or 40 or 50 or 60. Mm-hmm. We change, we evolve, and our careers need to evolve with us.
What gives you energy?
There's nothing more energizing than seeing one of my clients gain that clarity and feel really good about where they're going next. Many of my clients feel stuck for some reason. Maybe they've been in a job for a really long time and actually have been outwardly very successful, but something doesn't feel right. Or they've always wanted to take a leap, but they've been too scared. So what gives me energy is helping people get to the other side of either that fear or that curiosity or that ability to think bigger.
Amazing. I can relate to that a lot. You and I have conversations about this, and I had it with many on the audience as well that know me. It's incredible, like how you get to forks in the road, right? And having somebody there that can help you decode, basically, right? What brought you here, and how can you think about where you want to go and how to get there? I think it's really important. Let me ask you now.
What drains me? Right now, nothing really drains me because I am truly living a life of happiness because I have finally found a career that helps my life. But what used to drain me were mindless meetings, inconsistency, unfairness, workplaces that don't value employees and that are not evolving with the times.
I want to get a thumbs up. There's Brent. Brent is a fantastic leadership leader, I would say. If you look at what he talks about, is everything about really leveling up how organizations need to think about their role of leadership and building cultures that are energizing, to your point, Jen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let me welcome Jeremy and Rakesh and Bruno. Hi, Bruno. And Michael and I think I already say hi to Mirza as well. But if any of you want to come on the stage at any point in time, just raise your hand. I'll bring you on. So let's go. So what are you curious about? That's your other pattern question. Let's see what that means to you.
What am I curious about? Oh, that's the other question. So, I think if people are struggling with what they want to do next, oftentimes they have the answer inside, and that's where coaching can help. There's something they're curious about that has sort of been behind the scenes, that coaching can help pull out. So for example, it could be somebody who's wanted to be a writer, but doesn't really realize they wanted to be a writer. They read a lot, they love to express themselves, and they've been fascinated by writing, but too scared to try that. They might not want to write a book, right? They might want to just be really active on LinkedIn and writing. They might want to write their own blog. And those are things that provide some clues. It doesn't always have to be career perspective. Some people are very curious about, for example, tennis, and they may realize that's a piece that's missing in their lives, and that's a dot to connect.
Awesome. Jeremy, hi. Are you really in Sweden?
Yes.
Wow.
So
So we're going global here, okay?
Amazing.
Nice to meet you, Jeremy.
It's nice to meet you as well.
Did you have a comment or a question or any point of views you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I think I'll touch on just the follow up on what you just asked her, and when people are trying to, what can bring them that same amount of peace maybe that Jen was speaking of, where you don't feel that tension, you don't feel that disconnection between you and that ultimate self that you were looking for. Because a lot of people look for it in joy and actually find it in peace, where it's something you can do over and over and over again that doesn't drain you, that doesn't bring that negative feeling towards you, because you can do it for 17 hours and keep going. And so it's really interesting that what happens is our hearts get hardened over time, or we get so distracted with all the scrolling and all of the external sources we have coming towards us that we miss the mark. And some of the things that we've always found naturally inclined to do, we have now replaced that with these patterns and these habits, which is what I also feel that what Jen's feeling, because I found with Clubhouse when it started a few years ago that speaking and mentoring and giving back to people while living my best life overseas and playing basketball, it's everything. I can talk to people for 4 straight hours and not blink an eye, need to eat or or feel that those human needs, because I'm in a form of love that I feel most profound to and most connected to. So I think I'll start there, but I'd love to hang out and just kind of chat with both of you and get to know some of your stories as well.
Wow. Jeremy, that's awesome. Thank you. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm so curious about your journey and what led you to where you're at. But Lindsay, go ahead.
No, we're probably going to have to do this conversation because that was, first of all, Jeremy, I mean, your voice alone brings so much energy, and it's super clear that you are clear about what your passion is and what your purpose is and where your energy comes from, even in that very succinct intervention that you just did. And I appreciate you being here. So cool.
I will say one thing that I've discovered is that it's a passion for sure. And when you're living your best life, and Jeremy, I'm really curious about how you think about this. It's still work. So I say this because I went on vacation last week and I disconnected from everything. And I realized, hey, even though I completely love what I'm doing, there's a need for a vacation from it. Jeremy, what do you think about that?
It's super huge. One of the things that I made myself do in the off season of basketball, which is my dream that I get to live out, is I made myself do construction work where I was digging through concrete for 8 hours a day with a jackhammer, and made myself do this literally. And as I was doing it, in between, I got to this weird rhythm where I was like, I don't want to be here, but I'm choosing to be here because I want to know what daily life could be like if I choose to live outside of my dreams and choose to work for money and trade my physical labor for it. And I got to this weird point where on day like 5, I started doing push-ups in between rounds where I would need to take those normal breaks, because I was like, I'm not going to let this break me. And now I'm going to lead even this into something that's going to give me that passion and fulfillment that basketball gives me. And so it was really fascinating to see that when I stepped back onto the court and I was in Spain in a tournament, there was a moment where I did not want to go play defense. I did not want to go fight with people that weigh 100 kilos and push people around. And basketball is actually pretty physical. And I laughed at myself as I was sitting on the bench needing to go back out there to do something that would lead me to my next job and my next dream job, which was in Sweden, which is there are things that I don't want to do that involve my dream sport that are work. And that I'm going to pick myself up and go make myself do it, because the things that I want, the fulfillment that I want, comes after the parts that I don't necessarily enjoy about it. So it's super cool because what you're saying now, because people have that, they miss the consequences that come with their dreams as well. And I think that's a great point. So great point, Jen.
Thanks so much. They do miss, you kind of think, oh, well, if I do what I love all the time, it's going to feel like not work. But that's not exactly true. It's that the fulfillment will be there at the end of the day.
Jeremy just answered the next question on your post, which is, what are you good at that you love to do? It sounds like, there's the reconciliation that you are proposing, Jen, with the way in which you think about this. He provided a really great example of how to connect those thoughts really in the seasonality of living your passion, and also recognizing when you need to interject, right, temporary stations to be able to hold on to your dream in the long term. So it's more of a long term game as opposed to something more immediate. I'm gonna bring Andrew up. Hi, Andrew. What do you have for us? Welcome.
You want to hear me?
Yes, nice to meet you. Where are you joining from?
I'm in South Africa, Lindsay.
Wow. Well, I'm going to tell you, this is exciting that we're able to, connect and find each other from all parts of the world in such a random way. And, it's meant to be. We are here, the ones that need to be here. So welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What is the thoughts that you're having so far in this conversation?
I actually was just thinking curiously, I'm a 34-year veteran solopreneur. I've never worked for anybody. I don't know what it's like to work for anybody. I don't know anything about toxic work life or anything of that nature. So
lucky you.
It's interesting to get perspective on and from people who are in the workplace and who have dedicated their life to a company perhaps. Mm-hmm. And, for me in particular, I'm from a generation of entrepreneurs. There is no one in my family that I know of that works for a boss or an employer. So it's been ingrained in the family history for forever. I'm also a fourth generation farmer, and I also have an organic soap business. And I've been doing graphic design on my own for the last 34 years, and it's been a hell of a journey. That's all I can say about it. And when I look at people's passions and the drive that they have, and I think to myself and I say, well, what is the motivation for somebody to have passion? And for me, when I was younger, it was ingrained, so I never knew anything else but to start my own business. I am pretty educated in terms of the graphic design area and farming, because I was taught from my mentors, which were all in my family. And it's interesting for me to get perspective from other people, because I've been conversing with a lot of people in America, and some of them have only found the passion in their 40s to start a business. And I'm already in my mid-50s, and I've been on my own since I was 19, grinding and working the business route. So it's interesting to get different perspective.
It sounds like you had so many great role models for what being a solopreneur or an entrepreneur could be. And so it's almost like that path seemed like the right one for you. And it's so great to hear that it's been successful. I think for a lot of people like myself, and I think like Lindsay, though I don't want to speak for her, when you've kind of been brought up in the, I'm going to succeed in a business and an organization, and I'm going to keep climbing to the top. There's reward in that, because there's, obviously the salary that comes with it, the security that comes with it. But there's also, I think at some point, you kind of wake up and realize, well, is this the life that I really want? Mm-hmm. And then if you think about going on your own, it is so scary. It is so scary to take that leap. And so it's fun to have taken the leap and see that it's okay. And it's not only okay, it's great. So a quote I love is leap and the net will appear. I really think when you live your passion, the universe sort of is there for you and is supporting you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jen. It's you're 100% right. No fear. Just purely because maybe it's stupidity, or maybe it's just hard grind, or as you said, it's ingrained. Because early on, I never knew anything about failure. I was never taught anything about failure. You just get up and you do it. And it's been the mantra of the family is dedication, discipline, and determination. Those three things will put you apart from many people. And just do what you want to do and don't worry about it. I often take on projects and I have no cooking clue as to how, where, and when. It's just an idea. You climb in and you just do it. That's the only advice that I can do. And I understand that there is skepticism, doubt, and all of these types of things that infiltrate one's minds. But I just say you've got to just do it, because if you don't, life is so short and you will never get to experience what might be. So just do it.
So Andre, you mentioned you started talking about age. That's a conversation I never have. I don't want to talk about the 40s and the 50s, but I'm going to tell you this. My friend Paul, who just joined the stage, hear you talk and I hear Paul's message is very, very similar to yours. And Paul is only 26, okay? We're going to go across generations here. I think he's the best to add to what you just encourage us to do. So Paul, what is your take on this whole thing? Bring it on, Paul.
First, I just want to say, Lindsay, what a epic event and conversation. It's been so fun for me to listen in the Garden of Excellence and support you and watch you elevate people and other people. And I want to give a quick shout out to my partner in crime from Nicaragua in the Garden of Excellence, Jackie. So good to see you, my friend, fellow outlier. And I've loved this conversation on so many different levels. Jen, you talked about something that has been really impactful for me about patterns. And one of the things that's so interesting is growing up, I would always hear people say you're a product of your environment. But what I've learned over the past couple of years through my experience is that a lot of people, most of us, I would say, are products of our patterns, because what happens is when things get tough, we resort back to our patterns, right? Like that's why I think when a lot of people are in like comfortable situations, that's avoidance was a huge pattern for me that I didn't realize for so long. And everything that you kind of brought up, like all the questions that you posed, reminded me of the latest book that I read called Limitless by her name's Laura Gassner-Otting, but I call her LGO. And she talks about these 4 C's, which are calling, connection, control, and then contribution. And this idea of limitless is really similar to kind of what you're talking about, and allowing people to figure out, like, the vocabulary word that she uses is consonance, where what you do aligns with who you are. And that was, a huge takeaway that I got from this conversation. And I think to respond to what Andrew was saying as well, perspective to me is probably one of the most powerful, if not underutilized, skills that people can possess, because I grew up really differently from pretty much like everybody that I've been around. And it's allowed me to kind of cross over pretty much every generation because of the perspective that I've been able to gain. And one of the things that I love so much about LinkedIn, and we've seen it firsthand in this conversation, is you get to communicate with people all over the world. We've had somebody from Sweden, South Africa, right? A lot of us are in the US, and it allows us to indirectly kind of learn from others' experiences to gain perspective. And I love that you're curious, because I always say, like, I don't think most entrepreneurs are born entrepreneurs. A lot of us have started in the corporate space, and you kind of learn over time that the system really isn't built for most people to win. Or a lot of people, as Jen was saying, as you get older, you realize that the older you get, the less control it seems that you are of, your life, really, right? Like reporting to somebody else, at the beck and call for a lot of people, right? Like sacrificing your family time for work, all these things. And it's the perspective and the curiosity and a lot of the questions where you really are able to make those breakthroughs and achieve the clarity that she was talking about. So yeah, excellent conversation, Lindsay. So happy I was able to make it to support you.
Oh my gosh, me too. I'm sitting here, Jen, listening to all this wisdom and thinking if you ever imagined your post expanding to such a profound conversation.
I mean, this is beautiful. Paul, I had chills while you were talking, because on my desk is Limitless. And I love the subtitle, which is How to Ignore Everybody, Carve Your Own Path, and Live Your Best Life. So I agree. I think it's a great book. And I really liked how you talked about how we're the product of our patterns rather than our environment. I think that's such a keen perspective and observation. Yeah, so Lindsay, no, I had no idea. And I think that's part of a simple concept, right? Patterns and dots.
Mhm.
Just very simple, but powerful. And in many ways, people can interpret it the way that is most meaningful for them.
When you think in retrospect, when you decided to put these thoughts together for us to read, what else did you want to say in your post that didn't make it into it?
I'm not sure, and I don't really remember the post that well. I should look at it again, but I would have said, what patterns have you noticed? How have you connected to the dots? I would have wanted people to engage in that piece, because I think it's almost like at the tip of your tongue, what's next for you.
Did you recall any particular reaction, comment, somebody reaching out to you, on DM, probably after you posted that piece of content?
So first off, I got a lot of comments on the post from people I didn't really know. And a couple that were really exciting for me was Sunita, who I don't know. I'm not connected to her. As she said, your post reminded me of the initial years of my business. I changed the field and chose business coaching. I made decisions by connecting the dots and questioning myself. I thought that was really powerful. And then, this woman called Jenny said, as someone whose brain thinks in patterns, I love the image of connecting the dots to make a pattern. So sort of this idea of the imagery, I think, is powerful. And then, somebody else said, and many times you can only connect the dots in hindsight, and hence the deliberate practice of self-reflection is critical. And then I think my favorite one was from Charmaine, who said, this post brought the biggest smile to my face. Art gives me energy. So museums, interior design, you name it, it energizes me. And I thought it was so funny that she went to the place of art in museums when that wasn't really what I was talking about.
I think the person that shared with you connecting the dots in hindsight reminds me of Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement speech, where he said that you connect the dots looking backwards, and that's why you have to follow your heart, because somehow it already knows where you belong. I'm paraphrasing. And I know that's been, for me, my story. I've always, and Paul and I talk about this a lot, and he brings this up in his audio chats too, that, we get accustomed to chasing things, there's the next career move, there's the next, life decision. And sometimes you don't know where that's leading you until you pause and say, okay, I need to really look back and see, what am I doing? Where am I going? And to that power of self-reflection. And sometimes you're forced to do that too. There are events in life that, you got laid off, sadly, you lost somebody that you loved. Like, there are times in which life shakes your ground unexpectedly and create the space as well for you to reevaluate, right, your direction and your purpose.
Absolutely. A couple of things I would ask you, how does what you're doing right now, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so if it's, don't
I'm gonna taste my own medicine now.
But how does what you're doing right now connect the dots for you, like through this LinkedIn audio?
For me, so if we take this as an example, it really is another manifestation of what I think, what must been about, which is, connecting people with one another, expanding on the reflection of what life throws at us every moment. And is to overcome fear of uncertainty. I feel like even using something as simple as audio chat can create a lot of fear in people just to try it. And I've been the kind of person that I throw myself into things. I don't necessarily, if it's something new and I see the potential and I know it's bringing value to the thing I know means something to me, I don't hesitate to try it, even if I don't get it perfect the first time. And this one example, as little as it is that, I'm also in a little career pause and reevaluating certain things. And I feel like these kinds of conversations that we're having here, I don't think they're random. I also believe there's some kind of magnetic field that is bringing us together. And it's developing and elaborating on that journey for me.
Yeah, and I think this is just the beginning. I think there is something really big here. I think I told you that when you first came up with the idea. And I have a quote that I love from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which she says, so often in life, things that you regard as an impediment. So for example, I'm to this, losing a job, some sort of major grief in your life, and they turn out to be great, good fortune. And I really believe that. I think sometimes when people lose their jobs unexpectedly, it is the best thing that could ever happen to them.
Yeah.
Because it forces them to take a step they would never have taken. They're not people like, Andrew, who have been entrepreneurs their whole lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've been working for these companies. They've been probably very secure financially, and were too scared to take the leap. And the leap has been, they have to do something different. And it forces them to really think about what they want.
I think too that these kinds of connections, I don't focus only on the event of the audio chat, but what you're doing, what I'm doing, what Paul is doing, what Andrew is inspiring, what Jeremy brought up, and everybody on the audience that I know, each and every one of you are in your own journey to enable, a better, more resilient where you are. And I feel like the path, it's to recognize that every disruption is another opportunity to do just that. And it could be that you involuntarily lost your job, and it could be also that you felt called to leave and to explore something different because it's in your heart to do. And ideally, we're the kind of community that creates that ability to share the courage with each other. I feel like when the conversations come up and we're all in it, it kind of, makes us enthusiasts of taking courageous leaps in life because we're seeing other people doing it, and it normalizes it as opposed to going alone in isolation through the process.
Jen, you mind if I step in here for a second?
Yeah.
This is why one of our most important things we can figure out in life is who we are and do a self-this. It's what I have my clients do. It's one of the first things. We were forced to write a lot of papers in college. We were forced to learn about so many other people. When was the last time you could write down your morals, values, and vision for yourself and who you're going to be, who you'd like to be? And you see the gap between where that is and where you are right now. And the reason why I say that is it's because then when you do have those moments that can shake someone's foundation, I agree that those are some of the most profound moments for people's lives. It gives you that chance to not have the pause comes with it. It allows you to jump right into the next thing because you know who you are as you're into it. And even if you have it's like having that bigger view of eternal or that long-term perspective, even if somebody is not necessarily religious, and I'll share this quick story and then I actually need to go, but it's so I just met this person recently, and she had asked me if I was going to go to church the following day after one of my games on Saturday. And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, awesome, I'll see you there. And I was really excited, genuinely excited to see this person. But my main goal in life is to be myself and to find the way that I can bring glory to God and who I'm being every single day, and glory to my family and to a legacy that I'd like to leave for other people. So when I went to church the next morning and she wasn't there, I remember looking around and being like, oh, that's too bad. And then I sat down because I was there to be with Jesus. I was there to create this vision and this life for myself and for the people that follow me and for the people that I can make an impact with. And nothing changes. Nothing changes in that moment. I'm playing piano afterwards and talking to people and working on my Swedish. And then all of a sudden her mom shows up at the very end, walking down the main aisle and hands me her phone with her on the line. I was like, hello? And she's on the line. She's, I'm so sorry I didn't come, this. And what was my past would have been a deterrent in my life where someone let you down, quote unquote, became just an additional plus based on how I responded. So my question to everyone that I want to leave everyone today is, when things don't necessarily seem to go your way today, how are you going to respond knowing that it could be exactly what you need for your future? And how silly do you feel when you respond emotionally and then have things all work out in the end? So thanks for having me, Lindsay. It was nice meeting you, and nice meeting you, Jen, and Andrew and Paul.
Jeremy, make sure you connect with everybody on the call. The idea is that we also cross-pollinate and stay connected from here on, okay?
I did, and I'm excited to meet all of you.
All right. Well,
Great to meet you.
yeah. Jen, we're gonna start ramping down, even though we could talk about these for the next 3 hours, okay?
Sure. I was not expecting for this to be such a rich conversation, honestly. So this was great.
That's the power of a post, you know? So so as we and I'm really sad, I really don't want to finish this call, but we have to. So as we plan to ramp down, what would be, let's say, the top 3 things that you would like the group that we have here today to remind you for, to not leave today without knowing about you?
I guess I think the big thing is that I am an executive coach and career strategist. And what I do is I work with people to figure out how to make work for them. And oftentimes the clients I work with are not necessarily in transition. They might be in a job they don't love. And it's sort of the perfect time for them to figure out what they want to do next, as Jeremy was saying, like figure out who they are while they're maybe not in the best space work-wise. So all this to say, if you know somebody who is struggling with figuring out what they want to do next, having a hard time at work, please have them reach out to me. The second thing I would say is I'm fiercely loyal to my clients. You know, I keep my client list very confidential. And, you know, once the work is done, they love me forever. So, you know, I'll always amplify their posts. I'll always be there for them. And then the third thing I'd say is I love LinkedIn. I love the community here. And so please reach out. I'm trying to be even more active on LinkedIn. I really think it's the best professional network.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Andrew, any parting words on your end?
Yeah, if I might say one last thing, you know, with regards to connecting the dots. And I always talk about finding the parallels. And when one is in a specific job or a specific journey, there are always parallels within 1 millimeter on your left or on your right. All you have to do is to be able to see those parallels. And many people ask me, Andrew, you're a full-time farmer, a graphic designer, and you have a soap business. How do these all come into play? And I just say to them, when you dig deep into what I'm doing, you will see where my parallels are. So there are always parallels, and within chaos, there's always a sunshine at the end of the day. So that's what I want to just finally say. Thank you.
Oh my gosh,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
That's beautiful. All right, Paul, do you want to bring us home? Anything else you want to leave us with?
Oh man, I really loved this conversation, Lindsay. And I guess what I would end with is something that has been an absolute kind of game changer for me, which is figure out what is your definition and outlook on a lot of general ideas that a lot of us have kind of accepted somebody else's truth on what that looks like. An example, quick example, is my definition of winning equals finishing, because you can't ever uncross the finish line, right? There's a lot of times where you may pivot careers, but it doesn't invalidate the work and things that you've achieved, and it does nothing but build confidence to prove to people that, you know, you've done the impossible before, right? You've turned impossible equals impossible, and you can do it again. And as long as you show up for yourself, you know, you'll never have a 0 day. I love what Jen shared about how she didn't expect this conversation to be so powerful. And for me, that's why I've removed expectations, because when you do that, it just makes it more interesting. It makes it more freeing to just, you know, be real with people, not have any type of ulterior motive other than being. So that's what I would share.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna have to wrap us up. Please make sure you're connecting with one another. We'll do it again next week, same time, same day. I hope you have an opportunity to join. I saw a lot of amazing friends joining as well. Wendy, Melissa, MD, Jackie, Stacy. I didn't get to say hi to everybody, but I really appreciate you being here, and I hope to hear you again next week. And we'll keep testing and experimenting with this conversation as we move forward. Have an awesome week, everyone. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Lindsay. Awesome event.
Bye. Thank you very
Bye,
much.
thank you.
Where'd you go?
No, I went up.
Understand.